Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jill Schreifer, and on behalf of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Portland District, we're really excited to welcome you to the Coast Fork Master Plan public meeting. We're really excited to spend the next 2 hours with you and get your input on this very important process. And really thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to join us today. A couple of quick tech items as we get started. Hopefully everyone has been able to log in and can see a copy of the slides on the screen. If you don't have a working microphone, we request that you actually call in and dial the meeting access code so that we're able to hear you. We definitely want this to be an interactive, collaborative session and want to ensure that everyone is able to speak. We will also be using the chat function on WebEx, so want everyone to know where that is and be able to chat as we go throughout the process. So just a couple of things there that we would like to ask. If you are not speaking, that you stay on mute. We often can hear background noise or just different things going on, and it can be distracting to whomever is speaking. So just ask that you stay on mute when you're not speaking. There is a chat feature on this virtual platform, and we would encourage you to use it. We will have folks monitoring the chat throughout. You can send a chat to everyone on the list and really have a conversation. And we also have a raise hand feature. If you have a question and want to be heard, and we can call on you if you use the raise hand feature if you want to speak next. So we do know, I think one of the big things the pandemic has taught us over the past 18, 20 months is that technology certainly teaches us patience. Hardly anything works as well as you want it to the first try. So if you're having issues, we definitely want to help you and make sure that this is a good interactive experience. The whole reason we're having this meeting is to be able to hear your thoughts and inputs. So if you're having any tech issues, please email Alan at theschreifergroup.com and we will be able to help you troubleshoot and problem solve. Feel free also to mention if you have any issues in the chat, and one of us will try and ensure that we can get to you and make sure that your experience is as seamless as possible. So without further ado, I want to sort of share the agenda of what we'll be going through this afternoon. We will, in just a minute, kind of welcome everyone officially, introduce who's on the line, and walk through the project introduction. So we're really excited to share what this project is, what a master plan is and is not, why we're all really excited about this opportunity to undertake this multi-year process to create a plan for these lakes. And then we're going to go into a series of interactive activities. So as I mentioned, we really want this to be an interactive, collaborative session where we can really take the time to hear what your thoughts are, what's working now, and what some future opportunities might be for these lakes. And we'll really be talking about, recreation, natural and cultural resources, kind of current conditions and future opportunities. We'll conclude the session with opportunities for you to stay involved. This is a multi-year process, and we definitely want to have your involvement and input throughout, and we will be sharing things along the way as they are developed. And we'll have plenty of time for questions and interactive input throughout. We do want to let everyone know that we are getting input in multiple ways. So we're really excited to welcome you to this virtual session. We had our first public meeting in person last night, and there will be another one tonight and in person tomorrow morning as well. So we're really excited to be able to be looking at different platforms and ways to interact with everyone. So just a little bit of information of who is on the line. We have quite a large group from the Corps of Engineers product delivery team, and you'll see a lot of names there. We've asked everyone from the Corps just to quickly introduce themselves in the chat, so some other folks on their team writ large are just going to be sharing in the chat who they are and what their role is in this process. And we'd love to ask you all, as community stakeholders as well, to take a minute and introduce yourself through the chat. If you could tell us who you are and what area you live in, and if there's an organization you represent or you're just here as a citizen stakeholder. So I'll give everyone just a second to do that if we want to share kind of in the chat who we are. David, ordinary citizens are welcome here. We're excited to have everyone. Oh, Steve, swimming coach. That's awesome. I'm really excited. Looks like we have a diverse group of people. Lots of outdoor enthusiasts. Folks are excited to hear about what we're doing. Great. I think this is going to be a great discussion, and certainly all the better with your input and participation. As I mentioned, my name is Jill Schreifer, and we have a great facilitation team that's going to help guide us through the exercises and the conversation. We'll let people introduce themselves a little bit more fully in the sections as they speak. But again, feel free to use the chat if you have questions for any of us and want to reach out to us. A couple of meeting guidelines I just want to go over quickly. We definitely want to ensure that, phones and backgrounds, that everything is muted, and appreciate you kind of keeping mute on overall in the background unless you're speaking. We really want to honor equity of voice. So if you are not talking or haven't talked or shared, we encourage you to, talk or share or give your input. If you have talked a lot, we encourage you to allow others, to kind of have some space to contribute in the conversation as well. Certainly with virtual platforms, we will do our best to make sure we're following raised hands, but really appreciate, what Jack just mentioned in the chat, just being curious, open to other people's inputs and kind of learning from, all the different subject matter experts, residents, citizens, technical folks. I think this is going to be a great conversation overall. We would love this to be kind of a learning conversation, really treating each other with respect, kind of assuming the best intentions that everyone really cares about the future of Cottage Grove and Dorena Lakes, and that we really want to, ensure that this process is open, unbiased, and we get as much public input as possible. And good news, we are all very effectively social distanced, and it is nice to actually see faces instead of kind of the bottom half being obscured. So thanks for participating in the virtual forum with us. So why do we do public engagement as part of this process? There used to be a school of thought that the technical experts could write these plans and do these reports in a vacuum, that there are a lot of knowledgeable people, who work at the Corps of Engineers, and that we can write our plans. And we realized that this is not the most successful way, to really create master plans, that without the public engagement, there's really, kind of a gap in understanding how some of these resources are used, how they're managed, and how they can be best used and managed in the future. So we really are excited to hear from all of you. And we want to identify data gaps. We want to share ideas. We want to hear what you use right now, and where you think that there are other opportunities. Last night at our public forum, we heard from people who have been, living around the lake area for multiple decades. There were some great stories about things that they used to do as kids and now they're doing as adults. And that's really what we're trying to do, is kind of create a master plan that has that, long-term vision and can ensure that we are sustainable stewards of our resources. We really want this to be neighbors talking to neighbors and have this collaboration, between the people who are charged with this effort as part of their day-to-day responsibilities and those that enjoy the natural beauty of these areas. So we're really excited to kind of explore ideas and look for opportunities that we're going to be able to, make some progress that's going to be exciting and acceptable to all as we kind of move forward overall. So we wanted to kick this off actually by turning it over to the Corps. I'm going to turn it over to Eric Peterson, Operations Manager, who's going to talk a little bit more about this project.
All right. Hey, thank you, Jill. Again, my name is Eric Peterson. I'm the Operations Project Manager for both the Willamette Valley and the Rogue Basin systems, which means I lead the team of people who operate and maintain the facilities, provide that day-to-day stewardship for natural and cultural resources here, and provide that interface with the public day in and day out. I really appreciate your engagement today. We all vote our priorities with our time, and so I want to thank you for making this a priority. Cottage Grove and Dorena reservoirs are part of a big system, 13 dams that were built between 1939 and 1969 for the principal purpose of managing flood risks to the valley. Since that time, the system has averted over $25 billion in flood damages for Oak Ridge, Cottage Grove, Springfield, Eugene, Monroe, Corvallis, Albany, Salem, and Portland, and towns in between. As recently as April of 2019, the system prevented over $2 billion in damages in one storm event. The valley is a different place today because of the existence of these dams. And there are many other project benefits in this system, including recreation, which I know will be part of our major part of our focus today, as will wildlife habitat and environmental stewardship. The benefits that we provide are somewhat in competition with one another. And our intent really is to balance and optimize those benefits within the legal framework and policy constraints that we have. The current master plans for Cottage Grove and Dorena that guide the land management and land use and resource stewardship activities are more than 30 years old at this point. And they have guided development and stewardship and served us well over time. We have an opportunity to look forward, to visualize ahead what the next 30 or so years will look like in these important areas. These are your resources, and we need your ideas about how to move forward, as Jill said, recognizing that any end state, any future vision also must have ways and means to get there. That is, we've got to have policy authority and dollars to implement. So plans have to be realistic and feasible, and this process helps us get to that point. A lot has changed in the 30-plus years since the last master plans for the Coast Fork were written. There are increasing pressures shaping our priorities and affecting how the system is being managed. Balance, particularly around the storage of water during the summer months, is harder and harder to find. And issues affecting us right now, just to cover a few things, and we can probably bump on to the next slide. Issues affecting us include initiating a new environmental impact statement for operations and maintenance of this system. Again, trying to articulate that balance of benefits into the future and understand the consequences and trade-offs there. Reinitiating consultation of endangered species, unlisted species, conducting dam safety program issue evaluation studies and dam safety modification studies, along with developing and applying interim risk reduction measures that are in place right now that impact the storage of water that we have in some of our facilities. We're releasing national inventory of dams information, including inundation maps, a little later on this month, that show the public the effects of potential dam failures, and the consequences of those effects can be perceived as pretty extreme. But that information used to be held pretty close, and it is being released publicly. Implementation of injunctive measures resulting from litigation around impacts of the system to endangered species. Simply stated, we lost a legal dispute over endangered species issues, and now we're court-ordered to implement changes in our operations that affect how water is stored and used throughout the year. This has bearing on the mix of benefits that we provide and is really outside of our discretion. We participate in a dynamic process to implement some of the injunction measures, but it does change the mix of benefits that we provide. We have to all recognize that if we, the Corps of Engineers, don't follow court orders, we'll be found in contempt of court, and that has a number of serious liabilities with it, and that's a place we don't want to go. We're not going to be weighing in on these issues on this slide today. However, knowing that they exist provides some context for how we look ahead. And thinking ahead, we need to think about resilience, adapting to increasing constraints as we move forward. We need to think about what can be done differently to provide benefits or improve stewardship as we move ahead under changing conditions. I want to thank you again for being here and working with us to shape the future of resource use and stewardship at Cottage Grove and Dorena reservoirs in the Coast Fork Subbasin. I'm looking forward to a productive meeting today, and I'm really glad to hear your ideas on how we can best move forward together. Over to you, Wendy.
Thanks for that, Eric. So welcome, everybody. We're really glad for the turnout. I think this is great. We want a lot of your input today. My remarks will be fairly brief so we can get to some of the interactive exercises that we have planned. So just to start on what our efforts are here, we have the 13 projects. What we have decided to do is write 6 separate master plans, one for each watershed. That's the best way to approach similar ecosystems and similar cities and user groups in those areas. So this year we'll be starting with Cottage Grove and Dorena. Next year we will bump to the north on the South Santiam and work on Foster and Green Peter dams, and then we're hoping to start Fern Ridge the year after that. The intent here is that we think it'll take about 2 years for the planning process from start to finish for a final document with all the public comment and stakeholder coordination. And so we're just really excited to start with Cottage Grove and Dorena. Next slide, please. So Cottage Grove is a pretty unique site for the Army Corps in that we manage all the recreation at this lake. At most of the other lakes, that's done in partnership with the county, the state, or other entities. And at Cottage Grove, there are 96 campsites. And that's at 2 different campgrounds. There's 2 boat ramps and 4 day use areas. And some of the activities people enjoy there include boating, swimming, camping, fishing, hunting, walking and other exercise, bird watching, and just spending time outdoors. That lake has about 133,000 visitors annually. Next slide, please. So moving on to Dorena Lake. At Dorena, the Corps manages most of the recreation sites with the exception of Baker Bay Park and Marina, and that's managed by Lane County Parks. That's a 25-year lease. And then there's also the Row River Trail, a bicycle and multi-use trail that is managed by the Bureau of Land Management along the north side of the lake. Some of the access points for that trail are at Corps managed parks. Also 2 campgrounds at this lake and 2 boat ramps, 3 day use areas, a little bit higher on the visitation numbers, about 155,000 visitors annually. Next slide, please. So the environmental stewardship mission is to protect and enhance the environment, and that's a pretty broad ranging mission. And so with our new master plan, what we hope to do is define that recreational use and balance that use and operational needs while still fulfilling that stewardship mission. So some of the habitat types that you'll find at Cottage Grove and Dorena include prairie, oak woodland, riparian forest, the lake, and then the associated streams and wetlands. Most of the Willamette Valley habitat types are rare and under threat throughout the area, so it's on this valley fringe where many of the best conservation opportunities still remain. Within the Corps managed areas, there are 10 known sensitive species, 5 plants and 5 animals, including those on the screen, along with salmon, Pacific lamprey, and the golden paintbrush. Those habitats are also very important for game species and for common animals too. So some of our habitat restoration projects that we do include prescribed fire, invasive plant removal, and we do a lot of partnerships with the local community. And at these areas, that includes the Coast Fork Willamette Watershed Council and Kennedy High School. So with the high school, the kids are out there and they're collecting seeds. They're bringing it back to their school greenhouse and nursery to grow the plants out. And they've adapted restoration sites at Bake Stewart and the East Wildlife Area at Dorena. I bring up the Shoreline Dock Permitting Program. It's not at Cottage Grove and Dorena, but you may have heard about it locally because it does exist at both Fern Ridge and Dexter Lakes. And so that program is a way to permit private docks and access paths to the lake. Nationally, the Corps put policies in place in 1977. If a lake didn't already have private docks, it was prohibited from adding them, and the lakes that do have them have to have a shoreline management plan. And then finally, there's a boundary program that we have where we go out and check the boundary line on a regular basis to look for trespass and encroachment and address those issues that might negatively affect the resources. Next slide, please. So from the cultural resources management perspective, that includes both protecting and preserving sites, including artifacts, sites that are important for tribal use, and then also historic properties. So in fact, both Cottage Grove and Dorena dams are eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. Cottage Grove Dam was built in 1942, and then Dorena was completed in 1949. So for the cultural program, we do a lot of site monitoring. We go out and survey areas. We try to minimize impacts during construction and maintenance activities, and we work to deter artifact looting, especially in the lake beds. The Cottage Grove and Dorena Cultural Resources Management Plans are also outdated. They were written in 1986. So those documents will be updated as well as part of the overall master planning process. Next slide, please. So Christy is going to present next on what a master plan is and what our revision process is going to look like. But what we're planning to do is integrate an environmental assessment into our master plan document. So that way we can understand the resources I just described and how any land management changes may affect them. So some of the federal laws are listed on the right, and our draft master plan will go through a process to analyze the impacts of our proposed actions in accordance with all those regulations. We'll have a robust period of stakeholder engagement as well to talk with Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and the State Marine Board about some of the regulations at the reservoirs, as well as all of the other user groups and people and state and federal agencies that interact with the lakes there. So there will be an official public comment period on our draft master plan next October. And your comments are really crucial because even when we do our analysis and we look at this, there may be issues we're not aware of, or we may not understand the full impacts of some of our actions. So I really encourage your participation today so that when we get to the point of having that draft plan, it's really as good as it can be. And now I'm going to turn it over to Christy.
Hello, my name is Christy Johnson. I'm the lead natural resource specialist for the Willamette Valley Project in the Corps of Engineers. And I'm going to give you an overview of the master plan project. Next slide. I'm going to discuss what is a master plan, what does a master plan address, and what does it not address, and also talk about why this effort is being undertaken right now. And then we'll just talk a little bit about the master planning process, which includes the project schedule and the opportunities that you will have to participate in that process. Next slide. So what is a master plan? A master plan is a strategic land use management document that guides the comprehensive management and development of all project recreational, cultural, and natural resources throughout the life of the project. Generally, the plan is usually about for 20 years, and then it's revised. So I want to clarify before we go any further that we at the Corps of Engineers use the word project sort of in a different way. So today we're talking about the master plan project, the singular project that we're working on. But also sometimes we refer to the areas around the dam and the water and the land, the reservoir, as a project. And that really, that term comes from when the project, or when the dam and the reservoir was initially authorized by Congress. It was a project when it was being constructed, and we still refer to those, the land and the water and the dam and the reservoir as a project. So when we say project, if we say Cottage Grove Lake project or Dorena project, we're referring to the dam and the reservoir and the land around it. I just wanted to clarify that because when I first started working for the Corps, it took a while to figure that out. So back to what is a master plan, it does establish a vision for future natural resource management, and it guides responsible stewardship of all of the project's resources. Next slide. So what does a master plan address? So again, we are going to be developing strategies for the protection and management of all resources through sustainable environmental stewardship programs. And that includes water, fish and wildlife, vegetation, mineral resources, cultural resources, interpretive materials and programs, and recreation facilities. We also will consider in the master plan land acquired for project operations that we don't necessarily manage, and also out-granted lands. An example of that, of the out-granted lands, would be Baker Bay Park at Dorena Lake is operated by Lane County under a lease agreement with the Corps. Next slide. So we also want to clarify what doesn't a master plan address. And so although you may have some questions and comments during this meeting about certain things, we do really want to focus on the things that the master plan does address, so we can get that included in the master plan. So the plan may touch on these issues, but do not directly address the following: water quality, water supply, water level management, hydropower, navigation, shoreline management, and flood risk management. As you can see with the asterisk there, those things are, there's plans and documents for those particular issues, separate documents from a master plan. Next slide. So why now? Why are we revising these master plans? Well, as Eric mentioned, the last time we had master plans developed for Cottage Grove and Dorena Lakes was in 1989. And a lot of things have changed since then. And so we want our master plans to be relevant for current conditions. And so examples of changes would be changes in land use. Probably many of you are familiar with the Row River Trail that goes along Dorena Lake. Well, in 1989, that was actually still owned as a railroad property. And today it is now managed by the BLM as a multi-use trail. So we want to be able to incorporate that change into our master plan. There's also been changes in environmental conditions. Like more in recent years, we've experienced more droughts. So although today we're not really going to be discussing how we can operate the reservoir to improve water levels, we will talk about how we can maybe adapt some of our boating facilities to those more frequent low water levels. There also may have been changes in relevant legislation, for, like Wendy was just talking about, special status species that we need to protect. There may be some new plant or animal species that have gained special status protection since 1989. We want to incorporate that into the master plan. And then another change is people are recreating differently than they have in the past. People have much larger RVs, so that could affect how we might want to manage our campgrounds. People have larger boats, which could affect our boating facilities. And also we see change in use. Recently, a lot more people are engaged in paddle sports like kayaking and stand-up paddle boards. So we may want to incorporate some changes based on the change in use. So that's why we are updating our master plan now. Next slide. So this shows the maps that were in the 1989 master plans. And so we're going to be looking at maps today. And I just wanted to make sure everybody understood how we manage the areas through the master plan. So what you see is a lot of different colors here are land use classifications. And so the areas are classified based on how those areas are used. And they are called management units. And the land classifications include operations, recreation, mitigation, environmentally sensitive areas, and there's a category called multiple resource management. And within the multiple resource management classification, we have units that are classified in subcategories. So that would include low density recreation, wildlife management, vegetation management, and also we have inactive and or future recreation areas. So when we update the master plans, we may want to reclassify some of these areas into a different, we may change the unit boundaries, or we may reclassify them based on current changes in land use. Next slide. Okay, so now that you understand what a master plan is, I just want to talk briefly about the process. So we started out by looking at the existing conditions, and right now we're analyzing the various problems and opportunities. And you can see the red arrow there. We're having our public meetings now with you this week, and we will take that input and start using it to define goals and objectives. And also we will engage with our stakeholders on the different kinds of things we're thinking about incorporating into the plan. And for an example of that might be if we get a lot of suggestions from people about how we can change or adapt our boating facilities, we might want to consult with the Oregon State Marine Board. And I know we have somebody on the call today from the Oregon State Marine Board to ask them, hey, what do you think about this idea? And we want to incorporate those ideas from our stakeholders into the master plan. Then we will develop the plan, draft, and have a draft of the master plan and the environmental assessment by October of 2022. And at that time, we'll have another round of public meetings where you will have the opportunity to review the draft plan and provide more comments. And then we will have our final recommendations and final plan. So the next slide explains this schedule, the dates. Again, we have our public meetings that are happening right now. You'll have your opportunity to give input today. There's also going to be a post-workshop survey on our website. There's a post-workshop survey. There's also areas where people can put input on the Coast Fork Plan website. And those comments are going to be collected until December 10th of this year. Plan development will occur from now through next September. We'll have, like I said, another round of public review meetings in October of 2022. There'll be a 30-day official public comment period for that environmental assessment. And then the final plan should be ready for delivery in May of 2023. Does anybody have any questions about the master plans or the project schedule? You can put your questions in the chat if you like. So thank you. Oh, I think there is one more slide about participation. There it is. Okay, so if you go to the coastforkplan.com website, you can subscribe to the newsletter by just putting in your email address, and they will keep you updated as we go along through the process. As I mentioned, you can submit your comments or questions until December 10th. And there's the link to the post-workshop survey. And if you have any difficulty with any of the technology that's being used to collect comments, you can always just send an email to that info@coastforkplan.com. And again, we hope you'll return for our public meetings in October of 2022, where you can review the plan and give us comments on that. Okay, I don't see any, wait, maybe there is one question.
I don't see any questions. Does anyone have any questions for Christy? Feel free to raise your hand, chat, or unmute yourself. All right, thank you so much, Eric, Wendy, and Christy, for that great background. I think we want to really rely on, all of that information about what we're doing and kind of the left and right limits of the scope. And as we transition into the next part of the workshop, which is really all about getting your input. So we've designed a couple interactive activities for us to just get your feedback and kind of collaborate on that. And the first thing we're going to do is actually a SWOT analysis. So when we think about a SWOT analysis, and I know probably many of you are familiar with this, we look at strengths and weaknesses. So kind of thinking about the current strengths and weaknesses of Cottage Grove and Dorena, what can we control? You know, what are some things that we know are either really good, you know, our strengths, or that are not so great, which is our weaknesses? And then we also want to look kind of out to the future. So thinking about, you know, what opportunities do we see in the future? What positive things are there that could really, you know, impact us in the future, and what might we be able to do differently? We also want to consider some of those future threats as well. You know, what are some of the external forces, things that we might not be able to control, but need to be able to prepare for, that could threaten the way we do business and the way that we protect these resources. So we're actually going to transition over to a different way of note-taking. So we'll get that screen share up. So this is kind of fun. We consider this it's called a Miro board. And in person, we actually have people write on little slips of paper or sticky notes. But online, we're going to help, you know, you write on those sticky notes electronically. So we want to kind of talk to you all about, you know, what the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are for Dorena and Cottage Grove. And Alan is zooming in because I know it's a little bit hard to see. Hopefully everyone can see on your screen. But we'd like to give everyone just a few minutes in the chat. We'd like everyone to kind of participate. What do you think the current strengths are of Dorena and Cottage Grove? So what areas do you currently use and like? What unique capabilities and resources does Dorena and Cottage Grove possess? What do others perceive as some benefits of this area? You know, ultimately, what is working well? So what do you think are the strengths of the area? We're going to have everyone about 3 minutes just to chat as many ideas as you have about those strengths.
Dorena. Strength.
Accessibility to cities like G.
Accessibility to cities. So as you guys type or share things out loud, we're putting everything in.
Trails.
All right, I'm seeing a lot of good strengths here. So picnicking, good parking for trucks and boat trailers, flood control, remote location that helps you get away from some of the larger cities, a lot of diverse activities, walking. People really like the water for recreation, outstanding small boating, wetlands, accessibility by South Lane County residents, dog walking, great variety of fish. I think we have some fishermen and fisherwomen in the audience. Bike path is a great asset. Both lakes offer amazing boating and recreation opportunities and experiences. Trees, a great tree canopy. Multiple recreation opportunities. Natural beauty and scenery, great access to water and boating. Paddle sports, bird watching, outdoor recreation. Anything else that anyone wants to add here for the strengths? Peaceful and restful. Yeah, the student access. Campsites and day use areas. I'm seeing a couple comments about family engagement, that this is a great place for families to go, family fun, camping, family bonding activities, flood control. Recently used for some running events, so popular for track town enthusiasts. Steve, I think you identified a strength. Everyone appreciates bathrooms. Always a good one. And whoever's talking, I can't quite hear you. So if you could repeat that maybe a little louder, it would be great. Health benefits, photography opportunities, barbecue pits. You guys are giving us a challenge with typing as fast as you're writing. This is great. We're gonna have a lot of stickies.
So low water, still a dock.
To make it accessible to swimmers too.
The lack of development, natural, ecotourism. I like this too, the dark nights, that it's good for photography or stargazing for kids and adults.
Accessible to boats, and they'll keep, but can't get in.
Accessible for boats. Great hiking. Close to waterfalls. All right. This is a great list. And I think that one of the things that we always want to do when we undertake a master planning effort is we always want to make sure we're building on the strengths. So anything that's a great and unique capability, we want to make sure that our plan supports and promotes that into the future, and that we don't do anything that's going to impact those strengths negatively. So we really think about, kind of looking at this, I'm struck by just the diversity of recreation opportunities that are offered by Cottage Grove and Dorena, from recreation that's active to passive, just great place to be. And someone mentioned where else, how great it is to be, within 10-minute drive, to a lake in certain cities around here, and a lake that's so active and can do a lot of things. All right. Any other comments on strengths before we move on to weaknesses?
Oh, I like humidity.
I think we can hear you, Steve. You guys are unmuted. I don't know if you're trying to share a comment. Okay. So let's move on to weaknesses. And weaknesses are also kind of the current condition. So think about what's existing right now. When you go to Cottage Grove or Dorena, where are there things that you think, gosh, this really could be improved? Or I've been to another place that does this a lot better, or has different or better amenities. Maybe something that you think, gosh, if we had this or this were improved, this would be our full operating potential. So the weaknesses are kind of hindering it from that. Any safety concerns you have, we want to capture all of that. So give everyone just a few minutes if you want to chat. What do you perceive as the weaknesses of Dorena and Cottage Grove? All right, we'll give everyone just a few more seconds to write in, and then I'll kind of read through these. Okay, so we're hearing a couple things. Nearby clear cuts diminish some of the natural beauty. Parks and parking not open year round. There's a lack of speed limit for watercraft as the water bodies get smaller. This is definitely something that we have heard in last night's session as well. Unsafe parking when the lots are closed. Bathroom maintenance needs improvement. Some recreation facilities are at the end of their useful life and have a lot of aging infrastructure among the campgrounds and marina facilities. Not enough water. Tree die-off at Pine Meadows and other places and other campgrounds. There's certainly an impact of motorized boating to paddle sports, and it also impacts just the general peacefulness of the area. Parking at Cottage Grove can be hard, but it probably does keep people spread out. Yvonne, I agree, that's kind of one of those double-edged swords, has some pros and cons there. Water quality issues with mineral deposits, low water levels, disturbance of nesting and feeding birds, drought, trash, personal watercraft. Areas impacted by overuse, water pollution, short open seasons, lack of education, natural and cultural resources, lack of awareness regarding drought impacts, lack of water conservations, impact of current and legacy resource extraction nearby, limited access to water during low water periods, algae blooms, and some of the dangers there. Anything else that anyone wants to add? Okay, so this kind of gives us a good sense of the current conditions, and now we want to move on to some future thinking. So when you think about Cottage Grove and Dorena, what do you think would make these areas better places? What would make it more attractive for public users? What amenities would you like to see, or protections in place? Are there services that could be improved or services that should be reduced? Any trends that you think that could positively impact, or things that are missing that we should be doing? So we will take a few minutes to just allow everyone to add to the chat. Where do you think we have opportunities in the future for Dorena and Cottage Grove? And Steve, it looks like you sent me yours privately, so I'm just going to send that to everybody. We are muting some folks if we're hearing background noise, so if you actually want to chat, you might have to unmute yourself if you want to speak, or let us know in the chat.
Hello, can I give a message?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I live near Cottage Grove Lake, and I understand that a person should not eat more than one fish a month in the lake because of the mercury contamination. So I think that there should be a sign noticeable when people go there to fish?
Okay.
I think it would be very difficult, or maybe even impossible to dredge the lake. Or I see there used to be a mercury mine further upstream, and that's why there's contamination. And I guess it just the silt just builds up in the lake and then stops where the dam is. That's all. And then there's one more thing is it's kind of a nice walk from the parking lot at the lake and then up to the dam to look at the dam itself. But the people sometimes should clean up after their dogs so that the path is cleaner. Or maybe get some volunteers to clean it up once in a while. It would be appreciated.
Are
Thank
there
you.
any like dog waste bags or anything like that that are out or available?
I don't think there are, at least, but even if they are not provided, it just could be a nice reminder to please clean up after your dog. But otherwise, it's a very nice walk. At least the last time I walked on it, which was about a year or two ago before COVID, but I intend to go back there because it's kind of fun to go and look down at the dam. You know, get it right next to it, and the barbed wire, of course, keeps people from going, beyond. But it's a nice little walk.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'll your line now.
Sure. Great
Bye-bye.
suggestions for signage. All right, so I'm seeing a lot of different opportunities here. Opening year-round, especially for the day use areas, having more camping opportunities that are accessible from the water side. Swimming buoys need to be moved up as the water level falls. Improve trash and restroom maintenance. Bathroom maintenance, seconded there. More group camping opportunities like cabins and yurts. We've actually just been working on a plan where they're looking at, different very simple A-frame cabins that could be just housing beds basically, and then picnic tables and some cooking options outside. An interpretive center, so some more opportunities for education. Speed limits for jet skis was mentioned. I think that one also came through privately, so I will shoot that out to the whole group. Ecotourism to support the local economy. Some restrictions on wakeboarding and wave runners. Looking at, just low water level impacts, how they're impacting boating access and marina business. I think, Brett, that's also kind of a threat of something we'll look at too in just a second. Encouraging more activities like lake to lake, or some activities for kids like a learning center. So that one was mentioned again. And someone seconded that idea. Improve access to water when levels are low, sandy areas perhaps instead of mud, or maybe a gravel path. Bike, swimming, running events to support the local economy. Signage about the fish consumption. Thanks, Wendy, for adding that. Limit motorized vehicles when the water is low. Dog waste bags, maybe to think about dredging could be an opportunity if there's mercury contamination. Create a private swimming area at Harms Park. And I will put that out to everyone as well. Any mitigation just of activities that affect water quality in general. Enhance bird and animal habitat to increase ecotourism and help the local economy. Perhaps more signs on the bike path, and some of them could promote interest and information. We've seen some great ideas in places where we've used, historical signs or just informational signs kind of along either bike or hiking paths where people walk and sort of share some information. Staging opportunities and areas for running or water sport events. Guided nature walks. All right, you guys have a lot of great ideas. Bike repair kiosks. I've actually seen those in quite a lot of places around Oregon, and I think it's great, just little places where you can go buy different materials to fix a bike. That is awesome. There's also ways we've seen people do signs digitally. So you can like scan a QR code and there can be information and interpretive signage, or you just put it at the beginning of a trail, you know, if you want a guided walk and it's all GPS links. So that's a way that we can kind of use technology to integrate as well. So some cool opportunities for ideas like that. And Scott, yes, we will make sure that these ideas are available for people to see. More community volunteer opportunities. And Jack brings up a good point. QR code can be great, but if you don't have cell coverage, it's not going to work. Better cell services than added. I love it. Geocaching activities. More cell coverage at Dorena. We're on a roll, I think. All right, so some great thoughts about opportunities here. I'm really excited about these. Let's go to the final category, which is threats. And these are really things that we think could impact us in a negative way in the future. So what are some trends or conditions or outside forces that could really affect our ability to continue to use these areas the way that we have into the future? So give everyone a few minutes there just to add your thoughts on what the threats are to Dorena and Cottage Grove. All right, looks like we have a lot of concern about drought in general, concern about lawsuits and injunctions, overuse and complacency, people not taking care of the area, too much use, storms with huge rainfall, water quality impacts due to overuse and or climate changes. Steve had one of increasing pathogens with warmer water. I'll chat that out. An unrecoverable backward slide where the lakes never refill. Nearby logging, lack of water, pollution, aging infrastructure, wildfire, pollution and runoff, impacts of runoff due to adjacent resource extraction activity. And that links to, you know, the idea of mine contamination, drought, structural issues of the dam facility, drought for sure, lack of protection or limits with increased use. So thinking about ways that we might, you know, think about how increased use will impact the area. Conflicts between user groups. This is a good point. You know, people who use watercraft that's motorized and then non-motorized users. Human impacts just on habitat and animals. Decreasing water allocation for recreation, maybe potentially undervaluing the recreational aspects of the reservoirs to the population. Unprotected forest and land use that contributes many chemicals in the streams and watersheds before the water gets to the lakes. And certainly federal funding challenges, gas versus electric motors. That's a good one. Dog off leashes. Thanks, Steve. And Steve, there's a little drop down when you chat. If you want to chat to everyone, it'll pop up in the whole chat group there. But I've got you. And impacts from clear cutting. All right, if we kind of zoom out here a little bit, I really appreciate everyone's input here. This is really, really helpful. You can see we have a lot of great input between strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Any conclusions or thoughts people have as we've kind of walked through this, or what impressions are you getting as we sort of step back and look at this together? More strengths than weaknesses. Thanks, David, about the process. Some things are out of our hands, potentially hard to control. We love our lakes and want to keep them, absolutely. I think when I look at this, it's really important to think about, you know, how do we build on these strengths? There's so many things, you know, that people are excited about. You know, the goal of natural beauty, great comment, Jack. And Maddie, you know, I think you're right. There's more strengths and opportunities than the weaknesses and threats. So there's clearly a desire, you know, to protect and enhance these resources. And there's clearly a knowledge of some of the weaknesses and threats that are out there. So thinking about ways as we enter this planning process that we're able to protect our lakes, I think is really, really important. We want to make sure that we're able to do that and enhance all of the things we love, the recreational opportunities, the natural beauty, the diversity of activities, while also thinking about how we guard against some of these threats. And there are some things that we have more impact over, you know, in terms of weaknesses, and then other things that we're going to have to work in a much more broad coordinated effort, you know, like how do we address potential impacts of climate change? How do we think about, you know, threats that, you know, are out of our immediate control? So Brett, I totally agree with you. You know, I think it is the idea of our plan should show how we're going to mitigate, you know, some of these threats and then capitalize on and emphasize the strengths and opportunities. All right, everybody, we've been going for about an hour, so we want to give people a chance to stand up, stretch, get a drink of water or coffee. So it is about 6 after the hour. We're going to come back at 1/4 after, so about a 9-minute break, and we're going to do some graphic mapping when we come back. So we will see you guys at 1/4 past. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are now going to do one more activity with you all to kind of close out our time together. And one of the things that we've realized is really helpful is being able to visualize places on a map. So we have gotten a lot of great input from you with the SWOT, but now we want to kind of look at maps of Cottage Grove and Dorena and kind of walk through, you know, putting pins graphically on a map. Where are the areas that you see as great strengths? Where are the areas that you see as areas of concern? And then where are areas you see as opportunities? So I like to call this rights, blights, and mites. So the idea of rights are things that, you know, like if your family or friends were coming to Cottage Grove or Dorena for the first time, where would you take them? You know, what would you show them in terms of the areas that you think are the most unique and special? Where do you think we have the best cultural and natural resources, the best recreation? The blights are the areas you might not drive by or would say, oh, we don't want to go there. That's not a great place to see. And then opportunities would be places that you think, you know what, it would be great if we had a boat ramp here in this location. You guys mentioned some comments about where you might want to have campsites with waterside access. We actually want to put those ideas on a map so that we can look back and sort of graphically see where some of those opportunities are from a spatial perspective. So we are going to assign you all randomly to different breakout groups. The breakout groups are just going to give us a small group opportunity to have this discussion. Every group is going to look at the same maps and discuss the same things. And then we'll have a few minutes for everyone just to kind of share. We'll ask you guys before we close out the breakout groups, pick the top 3 ideas, and it could be a right, a blight, or a might that your group wants to share out with everyone in the large group. So we will come back together and have a chance to share ideas. And then our team is going to send you guys all copies of these slides, of those maps, of everything that we discussed as the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So everyone who registered, for this workshop, we have your email address, and you will get access to all of that information so you can see what everybody was up to. So we're going to have representatives from our team helping facilitate this conversation, as well as representatives from the core and every breakout group. And you will be going through, kind of this online mapping activity and dropping pins for rights, blights, and mights with our facilitators. Are there any questions before we divide you out? All right, so this should happen automatically. You don't need to do too much. There'll be an option that comes up that asks if you can join a breakout group, and just click yes. And we'll come back together automatically. All right, I hope everyone had a great conversation. I was hearing a lot of information about how each group was going and heard some really interesting comments. So I would love to just take a few minutes. We have about 15 minutes left, so maybe 3 or 4 minutes per group, just to kind of talk about what some of your key takeaways are. So this is just high level, just a couple things that you wanted to share with the large group. And as we mentioned, we will make sure that we share all of these maps and information with everybody. All right, so which group wants to go first? Abby's, Alan's, or Tyler's?
I think my group can go first.
Sounds great.
I think we had whatever member of the public wants to speak and give a synopsis of what we came up with would be great. Maybe Steve.
Is Brett gonna go?
You can go ahead.
Well, we were an interesting group in that we didn't have a member of the public until the last few minutes, which was great. So we spent a lot of time working with Brett Henry, who's Lane County Director of Lane County Parks, talking about specifically Dorena and some of the rights, blights, and mights at Baker Bay Park, because that is the Lane County out-grant partner there. We talked a lot about the aging infrastructure, improvements that are being made. We noticed a lot of the things the public likes. Christy pointed out, some of the comments that were at the previous meeting. A lot of them are COVID related, which was really interesting. And, concessions not being open. And yeah, maybe I'll let Steve talk about some of the rights, blights, and mights that he offered when he joined us towards the end.
Well, I was only talking, unfortunately, and I missed part of it because I have people here doing some work at home. But the only things I talked about were how we use, I'm a coach of a swim club where we have 50, 60, 70 people a week swimming in an organized fashion. And we use Dorena and Cottage Grove. We also use Fall Creek a little bit this summer when we ran out of water. We use Dexter, and we sometimes go to the beach. But But my point was that I'd like to see the buoy system accommodate changes in water level. And I think if we would put in a buoy system to the west of Harms Park at Dorena, where there's a pretty tiny cove, so that there could be swimming opportunities there. So I prefer not to have people out in the middle of the lake. That it would be very useful, and it would allow us to move between Cottage Grove and Dorena based on water levels. And those two lakes' water levels do not go up and down at the same time. They're managed a little bit differently. And so I was just suggesting that that would offer some opportunities, and also try and minimize the conflicts we have occasionally with boaters and everybody trying to use the same parking lot and some of that.
All right. Thanks, guys. It looks like you have lots of different tags and pieces of information here, so this is going to be great. All right. Tyler, you want to have your group share?
Oh, we have a brave volunteer, Maddie Phillips, who's going to walk us through just a couple ideas. We had a really good group conversation. Let me get my screen up here, and Maddie, I can go to either lake, or we can just talk in general, however you'd like to attack this, and I appreciate your help.
Sure. Thanks, Tyler, for facilitating a nice breakout group. We had two members of the public in addition to myself. I'm the city planner for the city of Cresswell. And our two members of the public, Tammy Stark from LCC and David, both offered some great insights related to bird habitat and the opportunities for restoration in and around places where, mainly towards the areas that are affected by water level changes, towards the south of Cottage Grove Lake in particular, because I think that there are some impacts that are causing the birds to move around a little bit more differently than they would naturally. And then further, David had some observations around the osprey population. There's a nesting pole that someone located near a roadway, and that nesting pole isn't getting a lot of use by the osprey because of how close it is to the car traffic, maybe. So we talked a bit about birds and bird habitat, and some decomposition impacts, the smells and other things that come with changing water levels probably, but perhaps from other uses and runoff from other places that are outside or beyond the lakes themselves. And then my contribution focused on links to the community, particularly to Cottage Grove and the Row River Trail. The time distance between when the original master plans were done and now, we've started focusing more on what kinds of facilities people enjoy riding their bike on, and noted that several of the facilities that access the lakes, for Dorena, the Row River Trail is a huge opportunity to connect with Cottage Grove residents and really everyone from South Lane County to access the lake. The difference is that I guess at Dorena, the trail and the BLM trail ends at some point and spits back out onto Row River Trail, and there's the Dorena Bridge all the way at the south end that could make a really great opportunity or destination for folks that are going out for a full day ride. Another thing that might be really nice is to think about facilities that families might enjoy, because a lot of folks come out there with their families and kids, and they don't necessarily want to ride on the road, or they would prefer something more similar to a protected bike lane or a mixed-use path of some kind. And those are just some things to think about for both Cottage Grove Lake and Dorena as sort of a more holistic thing.
It's awesome. Thank you very
lastly,
much.
one more thing, Tyler, that I forgot to mention too, is that Dorena provides, I know this is a little tangential to the master planning effort, but Dorena Lake provides the drinking water for Cottage Grove and the city of Cresswell. So impacts to water quality there, like algae blooms and low water circumstances, can have a really detrimental impact to humans downstream. So it's a really sensitive area that if there are opportunities to improve the water quality through either natural system restoration or otherwise, those would be very well received, I think, by the South County communities.
Thanks, Maddie. This was great. You guys, it's always fun for me to see like what different ideas different groups come up with and we combine them together. It's really powerful. All right, last but certainly not least, Abby's group.
All right, I think I'm going to have to pick on Yvonne. Yvonne, if you're still on, would you be willing to share with us?
Sure. um, what am I sharing? What were our best ideas? They were mine, were they? I can't see the map.
Oh, that's okay. Just some of the things that there were a lot of things
I think,
that
well, just
liked.
kind of, I mean, just, well, what did we like? I don't know. You're going to have to help me out, Abby.
Sure. So you talked about
being able to bike.
playgrounds.
I mean, I'm really going to like pretty much reiterate what Maddie just said. I think the biking is a really good opportunity to bring people into Cottage Grove and to provide some family things and outings. And I like the ideas of having maybe a pool and a sort of a separate area at Harms Park. That was already brought up too, that we didn't bring up, but I like that idea because I was talking about Harms Park also has opportunities for the bird habitat as well. So it seems like all of these things are sort of mixing up together. I don't know, what else did we talk about?
Kayaking opportunities.
Yeah, the kayaking. It kind of works with the whole sort of swimming and the bigger boats going in on the Baker Bay side, and the people maybe who are more non-motorized on the other side. I don't know, is a possibility. And I was also concerned about the quality of the watershed, and the opportunities actually would be nice to help improve that, even if it's restoration, or I don't know what you could do, but some sort of riparian systems or something that could kind of help filter out some of the contaminants would be a possibility of things to do. And yeah, I don't know.
Great.
I can't remember. I was caught off guard there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you guys so much. These are always so interesting, as I mentioned, just to see what people come up with. And when we start to map them spatially, we're able to really see some great ideas coming together. We are going to collate all of this, consolidate it. We also have other groups where we're doing some public participation. So you'll be able to see others just like yourselves who participated in the process and what some of their ideas and opportunities are as well. So I want to leave a few minutes for questions. So I just wanted to let you all know that there are several participation opportunities coming up in terms of subscribing to the newsletter, being engaged on the website and online. We will chat a post-workshop survey. We would love to hear your thoughts on the workshop, and if you have any other additional comments to add. You can also email info@coastboardplan.com at any point. So lots of ways to continue to stay engaged and involved. I got a private chat that people really appreciate the Corps' Facebook, that they think it's really fun and informative. So you'll probably be seeing some more things on social media as well. As we mentioned, this process is just at the beginning. This will be a multi-year process, and just about this time next year in October of 2022, we will have the opportunity for public comment on some of the results of the plan. So we hope you all clear your calendars for October of 2022 and be able to participate with us in that. We also have a QR code if that is something that's easier for you to use. You can just take your smartphone and scan a picture of this with your camera, and it will actually give you a link to that survey that you can fill out from this workshop. So we have a few minutes left, and I know people are happy to stay on the line if others have questions, but we really wanted to be respectful of your time. And on behalf of our entire team, just thank you all so much. We could not do this work without you. Your ideas, inputs, and insights have been so helpful, and we will be instrumental to this process. So we are here to answer any questions that anyone may have.
just a big thank you to everyone who organized and operated this very awesome and interactive public meeting. Nice work.
Thanks, Maddie. Appreciate that.
Thank you for participating.
I see some comments in the chat. As well. We are so appreciative that you guys were able to spend time with us. This was great. It is nice to feel that sense of community. Lots of people with a lot of passion for and interest in these areas.
And Maddie, if you're still there, spread the word to your community that we have a meeting in your town in Cresswell tonight. Thanks.
Thanks, David. Understand you're unable to unmute. Good. David, we're very glad we could be your first virtual meeting. That's a milestone.
Poor guy.
It was
lucky
that.
guy.
Well, I as just as an individual and a retired Corps guy, that this was very informative, quite educational, and I'm looking forward to future get-togethers.
Thank you. Scott, we've answered your question about the NEPA contact. There you go.
Scott, do you need Paul's email address or contact information? Oh, wait.
You and
Yep,
Wendy
there it is in
have
the chat. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, well, it is the top of the hour, so I want to formally conclude the meeting. If anyone wants to stay on for any questions or comments, we're happy to do that. Otherwise, we hope you all have a wonderful afternoon and enjoy what looks like it'll be a somewhat sunny weekend. So hopefully get some bursts of sun amidst the rain this weekend. Thank you again so much for your time, and we look forward to being in touch.